It's not a hidden secret that the best investments we can all make are investments in ourselves, which typically means new knowledge and skills. But honestly, how many of us do this on a deliberate daily practice and a consistent effort? I remember when I was starting in finance, I walked onto the trading floor at Deutsche Bank out of school. What did I know, right? And I wish that back then somebody came to me and said, hey, listen, here's a compact window into all the people that came in front of you, the successful and legendary traders and investors. And here's what they say about their experience, how they succeeded and failed. And you can read this and learn from it, and you don't have to repeat the same mistakes. So today, instead of talking about a specific stock, an investment, or an ETF to put money in tomorrow, I want to talk about a list of 20 books that really made a huge difference for me, which is listed below the video. And I'm going to highlight in the next few minutes 5 or 6 of those that I think really make a difference. Aside from the fact that you should have this as a library at home, as a reference that you can go to and read a few pages from a book any given day. Alright, welcome back to the channel. My name is Martin Zeman. First of all, let's agree that nobody is born an amazing trader and a successful investor, right? This is skills that people learn over time and perfect over time, over their lifetime sometimes. But mostly it's what they learn about themselves as it relates to financial markets. You know, how to deal with emotions like greed, like the adversity of losing money, and how to deal with the discipline that's required to manage your money successfully. Because making money typically doesn't really teach you much. It's the losses that teach you a lot, right? And how you overcome the losses and what you learn from them. Because the point is, you have to look for the lesson in the losses. You have to look for what you learn for the next time so that you don't end up repeating the same mistakes over and over again. So wouldn't it be great if you had a window into other people's losses, into how, in particular, the successful people that came in front of you, those legendary traders that today are billionaires, how they made their money and how they lost their money, and learn from the stories that they lived, right? So that you don't have to repeat the same costly mistakes, and you can somehow shorten that learning curve. So the point of this video is really to go, first of all, below the video is a list of 20 books that I think should be in every single serious investor's library. You don't have to read the books cover to cover, but it should be a reference. It should be a book that you can pick up every single day and read a few pages. But in the next few minutes, I want to highlight 5 or 6 books that I think are really important. The first book in the series should be mandatory reading for any serious trader and investor, and that's of course the Market Wizards series by Jack Schwager. Over the last 30 years, he wrote 4 different books in this series, which is always a collection of interviews with some of the most successful and legendary traders of their time, right? So in the first one, which is a real classic, you have people like Paul Tudor Jones or Bruce Kovner. But despite this being a little bit dated, the principles of investing and the human emotions and the psychology really stays the same, right? So I think everybody should read the first one, the Market Wizards, and the last one, which is the hedge funds Market Wizards, where Jack interviews the 15 most successful hedge fund traders. And what really comes through these books is the raw and honest stories about how these guys, in their own words, made and lost a lot of money, and how they overcame obstacles and their own emotional issues when it comes to managing the discipline that's required to be successful over a long stretch of time in the markets. For me, the most important lesson really was the fact that when it comes to investing, you can't just observe and learn from somebody and copy their style. You can do that and learn from their mistakes, but really ultimately you develop your own style when it comes to investing, depending on who you are as a person, depending on your personality, on your style of investing, and what triggers you personally. So I think that's the most important observation in the Market Wizards, really a classic that should be in everybody's library. Book number 2 on my list is The Flash Boys by Michael Lewis. Now, first of all, Michael Lewis, every single book of his is amazing. It's all of his books read like a detective story, and Flash Boys is no different. And by the way, a couple more books on the list below is obviously The Liar's Poker, which is a true classic at this point, but also The Big Short, which details some of the successful traders that made a ton of money on the subprime mortgages in the last crisis in 2008 and 9. But when it comes to Flash Boys, I think Flash Boys is an important read for everybody that's trading today, because it really showcases and details how algo trading took over, how these geek crusaders lay down the shortest cables to the exchanges to gain these extra few milliseconds, how those dark pools and the flash crashes work, and how that influences your own trading, and how sometimes obviously as a retail investor you're taken advantage of. So I think Flash Boys is an important read for people to understand the type of markets they're participating in every single day that they're trading. Book number 3 on my list is a book written by Nassim Taleb, and it's called Dynamic Hedging. Now, Dynamic Hedging is a pretty technical book about options and optionality. And I'm listing it here because it's not a book that many people have in their libraries, but anybody that's serious about trading options should have this book. It's not for beginners by any stretch of imagination. This is a complex book that in the beginning, in the first 60 pages, really lays out the basic terms when it comes to options and hedging options, but then goes into really details of complex optionality and complex hedging. I still remember Nassim Taleb when he came to give a talk to my graduate class when I was starting in finance at Deutsche Bank. I thought, who is this strange guy talking about volatility and options in a way that nobody ever did before me? But I think Nassim Taleb is obviously a legend in the finance world. His books, every single book of his is amazing. And in the list below, there are a couple more books from him, The Black Swan and Fooled by Randomness. But anything that Nassim has written, I think is amazing. And Dynamic Hedging is an important read for really anybody that wants to trade options or trades options. Maybe has traded options for years, but I think it's a reference that really is important for anybody that wants to understand volatility in more detail. Book number 4 is called The Technical Analysis of the Financial Markets by John Murphy. This is a true Bible of the technical analysis, and whether you make your decisions based on the technicals purely or simply use it as a reference, I think this is a book that anybody should have. By no means is this something that you can read cover to cover, but for anybody in particular, if you're new to trading, understanding some of the basics when it comes to resistances and supports and moving averages and stochastics and Bollinger Bands and divergences, these are all concepts that are important to know about, to understand. And this book here is a true reference, a true book, a go-to book when it comes to technicals, and I fully recommend it. I read it, I have it in my library, and I think it's a very useful book for people to go to, especially for, again, those that are new to trading or relatively new to trading and hear about technical pictures but don't always fully understand what people talk about. Okay, last but not least, book number 5 on this list is a little bit different, and you wouldn't typically find it on a list of the best books for trading and investing, but I think it's an important book to read and have as a reference. It's called Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins. Now, Tony Robbins clearly is not a legend of trading, is not a hedge fund manager, but Tony Robbins is a legend in the coaching and speaking world, and he's friends with a ton of billionaires out there. And what he did in this book is he interviewed 50 billionaires about how they made money, about the values that drove them to success. And I think, again, just like the first books on this list in this video that I mentioned, the Market Wizard series, where you have really interviews of the legends of money managing. You have, here in this book by Tony Robbins, you have the richest people in the world really telling it how it is in their own words. Again, you have that insight into who they are and how they achieved what they achieved. And a ton of them don't even give a ton of interviews. Like Carl Icahn, the legendary activist investor, doesn't give a lot of interviews. You see him on CNBC occasionally. But here, he is in Tony Robbins' book. And I think it's an important reference to have. A funny fact, I have recently participated in one of the seminars that Tony Robbins does now over Zoom for 30,000 people. And he mentioned the book and the experience of interviewing these billionaires. And he said that only 4 out of the 50 told him that they're actually happy and fulfilled. So just kind of to close this video a little bit, the importance of happiness and fulfillment really very often doesn't have a lot to do with money. But I think what's important in this message and this video and the 20 books listed below the video is really trying to understand how you speedwalk through the learning process of becoming a successful investor, trader, money manager, and be on the road to financial freedom. Because if you read and learn from others' experiences, you avoid making the same mistakes that they have made before you. And I think that's very important when it comes to managing money. So look, I make a lot of these videos about financial markets, personal finance. I appreciate you listening and following here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed this conversation. I certainly enjoyed it. I love talking about books, in particular when it comes to books about investing and about helping others fast walk and speed walk through the process of starting in the trading world and becoming successful. So I really enjoy this whole process, and thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.